Ready for another chairlift story? Back at Lee Canyon, I figure one of the bigger stories that I've got is the story of our business, Boulder Boats, how we took it from nothing, essentially a run-down service shop with no employees that was about to close shop with no lease on their building, to a $50 million business in 18 years. So where did this all start? Well, I was in advertising in Las Vegas, doing good at that job. I just felt like it was not fulfilling, really, and so I'd been looking. I'd always been entrepreneurial, which I talked about in the past, from flipping cars, boats, to selling stickers to my neighbor kids when I was a little kid, and baseball cards and golf balls. I've always done something, always been selling something. And so I was just really unfulfilled in advertising. It just wasn't, I didn't see the value in it. I didn't really believe in it anymore. But it was hard because I was in my 20s and making six figures, back in the 2000s. And so it was hard to pass up with very little responsibility, and kind of had my freedom. So anyhow, I guess my conscience or drive, I'm not sure what it was, that just made me kind of pursue something on my own. And at that age, it was looking at buying a business, because starting a business, really didn't know how. YouTube wasn't really a thing. This was like 2004. And so there wasn't all these endless lessons and tutorials of how to start your business. I mean, I went to college for business, but it's different. It's completely different. You learn some fundamentals, but not the kind of the details of it. So I've been looking, and really, when you're looking at buying a business, it's, I don't know, all I would come across was like the standard brokered businesses, like laundromats and car washes and things of that sort. So just nothing was appealing to me or interested me. I wasn't trying to buy a job, which a lot of times that is what happens for people. They think they want to be their own boss, and they end up just buying a job which owns them. But so I was down at the marina one night. I'd kind of been into boats and just been flipping boats for fun. I'd keep a boat or two each season, and just kind of fix them up and flip them. And by this time, I'm about 29 years old, and I had probably gone through about 12 different boats. And this, again, before Marketplace, before really the Boat Trader, it was a printed magazine. So what I would do is I would go online each night. I lived in Las Vegas. The lvrj.com was the Las Vegas Review Journal's website. And at midnight, they published the classifieds, which is going to be printed in the next day's newspaper. So I would stay up at midnight each night and look and see what new ads had come out. And it really wasn't, the internet wasn't even really big at that time, where people were looking at NADA and, seeing the values of boats. And so I had a pretty good understanding just from going through it all the time, and just being in it day to day to see what things were worth. And I was working in a budget of like $3,000 to $5,000. Those were the kinds of boats I was buying, and hopefully getting to use them and fix them and maybe break even or make a couple bucks. It wasn't really doing it for the money. I just loved it, and I loved going to the lake with my friends. And so that's what I would do. And so I'd be the first person to call in the morning, and if there was a good deal, and I'd show up and negotiate the best deal and have cash and do a deal with people. And so over probably 4 or 5 years, I've probably done at least 2 or 3 boats a season. So I go down to the marina one night to get some food, and I see in the bar who's this mechanic I'd been using for some electrical stuff on the boat. Just a guy that was just kind of freelance guy around the marina. And he told me, he's like, hey, you should go check out Boulder City Marine. Everything's half off. I'm like, what's that? And he's like, oh, that's a shop I work for. I'm like, I didn't even know you worked for a shop, because he was kind of, moonlighting and stealing that business, which should have been going through the shop. I'm like, why is everything half off? He's like, oh, he's closing down the business. Like, you think he'll sell it? Stupid question. Of course, he's about to go out of business. So that was on a Saturday. And so he set up a meeting on Monday. I met with him on Monday, and I believe we owned and operated that business on Wednesday. It's just ridiculous. About to get off the lift. More to come. Hey, 2 minutes later, back on the lift. And so where did we leave off? So it was a quick transaction, really. But it was a repair shop that I was buying. And two partners had owned it for a while. One of them I'd known for a while. He was the general manager of the local marina. And he was getting out, and so the other partner was getting out, and it wasn't a well-run business. Not a great reputation, kind of been run into the ground as they're shutting it down. And so I meet on Monday. I'm like, yeah, I like boats. I'm good at flipping boats, but I don't know how to work on the boats. So he says, well, there's another guy looking at it, and runs a service shop up in Tahoe. He's about your age, but I don't know that he's got the money. I'm like, well, this sounds like I got what he needs and he has what I need. So I'm like, give me his number. So he came down. His name was Don. He came down on Wednesday, and I think we owned it on Thursday. It was pretty quick. So I'm still working my advertising job, trying to juggle both. And I had invested in the business. Partner hadn't. He was kind of doing the sweat equity way about it. And so it, like many partnerships, didn't work out that great, and I didn't feel as very equitable, and he probably felt the same. And so he left after maybe 8 months or something like that. And he just quit and went back. And so we had two mechanics left. And one of the mechanics was, he's kind of a head mechanic, a good tech, and but it's definitely on partner's side. I didn't really fit in too well into that little clique. This guy had quit to go next door to another shop as well when my partner left shortly after. And so I'm left with one mechanic who it was not super reliable, and respectfully, I'll just say he had trouble showing up to work. So I'm left with really no assets as far as human resources go. And so I'm on the verge of like, all right, do I just call this quits? And I have my old partner's cell phone at this point, and there's a message on there, and I check it, and it's the other mechanic who left. And he says, thinks he's talking to Don, because Don doesn't have his cell phone anymore. He leaves a message, and it says something to the extent of, hey buddy, just want to let you know, I went next door to the other shop and put the final nail in Stuart's coffin. And that was it. It was game on for me. So that quickly swayed me to like, yeah, I'm not going to let this defeat me. And so just started building it back. And it's just building it. There really was nothing. It was just a bad reputation that I bought, and a whole drawer full of previous lawsuits. So this was in 2004, March of 2004. That's when I bought it. he probably left in the fall of 2004. And at this point, I'd already started a website, started advertising some of the consignment boats, since I didn't really know the service side of it that well, and it was just dependent upon the partner and employees at that time. So, I started building that and growing that, and back in this time, it's like things were humming. 04, 05, 06, like the economy was booming. I remember going to Havasu, and these kids in their 20s had these giant Nordics and big jacked up Chevys, and I was just like, how do they afford this? And it was obviously all credit, because in 08 and 09, all those boats were sitting at auction. But so we just grew it slowly, grew the business from cash flow, moved out of the original property because there was no lease. The landlord did not like the prior tenants. We built a relationship with them, but they were getting older, and so their family put the property up for sale. And then so bought another property, moved the service shop out to another place in Boulder City, and then ended up selling that back to one of the partners that I bought it from. And he still to this day owns and runs that repair shop and does a great job, has a good reputation. And so hopefully that worked out for everybody involved. So I branched off and started the dealership. And we just really started with used, and then grew into I remember we got Stingray was our first line of boats, and I'd buy a whole truckload. They could get 6, I think up to 7 boats on a truck. As an example, I think when I left selling Malibus in 2021, I think we could get max of 2 boats on a truckload. That's how much things have changed and the size has changed. And I would buy a truckload of 7 boats I had a home equity line of credit, and I think it was a $120,000 line, and I would write checks for $110,000 for those 7 boats. And now the average invoice on these boats is probably over $100,000. Things have changed quite a bit. So about to get off the lift again here, and we'll continue on the next one. So I don't want to get ahead of myself on this. Tell you some stories of early on. Remember we did our first boat show, I think it was in 05. It's a local Las Vegas little boat show at the convention center. And I had a dealer that kind of helped me a little bit. I helped him early on in the beginning, and in his business, and he was a local dealer, and so he'd give me some advice and things like that, and help me and give me some contacts, and that's how we got into Stingray. He used to sell them, and so we got into that, and I'm talking to him at the boat show, and we just kind of moved into our new place. So this must have been 06, I think, and we were kind of prepping the building and doing some slight modifications and cleaning up and stuff, and polishing the floor and all that stuff. And he says to me, he's like, well, what are you doing for flooring? I'm like, oh man, don't get me started on flooring. I said, I had to get that. I think we went through 2 or 3 of those diamond pads buffing that floor. He just starts laughing. It's like, no, like flooring, like how you financing your boats? I'm like, I don't even know what you mean. I'm like, well, I just took money out of my house, out of the equity in the home, and been paying cash for them. So I had started a boat dealership without even knowing what flooring was. And if you don't know what flooring is, it's how dealerships that sell high dollar inventory, it's how they fund the inventory. So the way that it works is the bank will work a deal with the manufacturer, and the manufacturer will cover whatever, let's call it 6 months of interest that the dealer doesn't have to pay. The manufacturer generally will supply some kind of repurchase agreement, and what that does is it's kind of like a safety net in case the dealer goes out of business inside of 12 months of that invoice date of that unit. In this case, it was a boat. if we were to have gone out of business, the manufacturer would have to buy it back. And that way the bank is not on the hook. So it's like a pretty good security blanket for them. But the reason they do that is because the manufacturers need these dealers to be able to have the financial ability to buy this inventory. I mean, we built up to about a $15 or $20 million line of credit. So you just order boats on an email, on a phone call, essentially. And they show up and they go on your line of credit. I started without any floor plan, without any line of credit or anything like that other than my house, and just kind of learned, really the whole business was learned as we went. So, but fortunately I was surrounded by really, really good people that were a lot better at their jobs than I ever could be. So that, that's really the key, isn't it, to any business, is surrounding yourself with good people. So that's why I have trouble telling a story like this in the first person, even just to say I did this, because I didn't do anything rather than kind of help steer this ship, I suppose. But yeah, we'll get into some more a little bit later. Thanks for sticking out through the end of the video here. Just to give you a little bit of background on what this company was, if you're not familiar. I just, like I said, just bought this old service shop, which is a really bad reputation, and going out of business in 2004. And eventually grew it up into a new boat dealership, new, used, in service, and grew to almost 100 employees in 3 different states, Arizona, Nevada, and California, and to eventually sell it in January of 2021, which that's a whole other story, and lessons to be learned there as well. And a lot of challenges, but really great experience. Wouldn't change it for anything. Met some great people along the way, helped a lot of people, and it was the fulfillment that I'd been kind of had a void for in the advertising world. And so we'll get some more stories coming up for you. That was just the tip of it, I guess. And I really appreciate you watching, and subscribe, and stay tuned.